This is the CreaseCast.
Welcome to the CreaseCast, fuckers.
Oh man, there goes all the kids. There goes every single kid that listens.
Yeah, don't. It's a little late, but I hope you're not listening to this with children in the car.
Yeah, whoops.
My bad. Welcome, folks, to a bittersweet episode of the CreaseCast. It is I, Cody Sievertson, your host of the Crease Crew. With me, as always, the man who built the place, Lachlan Irvine, and our producer, Jamie. Even though she's not editing this episode, so she's
Jamie, you're fired.
Kind of just screwing the pooch here, you know. A bit selfish, to be honest. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to let you go after this episode.
On our final episode, you're fired.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So for those,
I will gladly take the break.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's where we're all at. So, folks, I'm sure you probably noticed. You're like, oh, where are the guy? Where's the crew? Where's the Crease crew for the Crease training camp?
Yeah.
It's hard to not say cramp there. The Crease
The
cramp.
cramp.
The Crease cramp.
That's the Krampus.
Yes, it is a bit of a Krampus situation because, unfortunately, folks, we're going to be going on a little bit of a breaky poo here. It's bittersweet because it's for good reasons, which is probably the best thing that can happen if you're ending your sixth ranked podcast in the Vancouver market, is that you have to do it because of good reasons, not like I was trying to formulate this as a tweet where I was like, I'm glad our show's going on hiatus because the three of us got increased roles with Canucks Army, and we're kind of making our way through like one of the biggest platforms in the Vancouver media scene. And it's not like, oh, because Cody offended like an executive from a certain hockey team that listens to this and brought on a lawsuit that forced us to shut down.
Yeah, guys, the New Jersey Devils were really mad at Cody for what he said about Jack Hughes. He got in a lot. Like, yeah, we heard from them. We heard from Will Smith, owner of the.
We
New
heard
Jersey
from their
Devils.
brothers.
He is actually the owner of. He is actually co-owner of that team.
Is he?
What?
Yeah, he's like a partial owner or something, right?
Because so what happened was the owners of the Devils, their business operations started as ownership of the Philadelphia 76ers, which is why Will Smith is a part, and Will Smith wanted to be a part of that ownership group. So technically he does own part of the Devils as well.
Yeah. So anyway, unfortunately, folks, you're going to be missing a lot of this where we start talking about something and then we go off on tangents about something completely semi-related.
That's true. That's the joy of this show for sure.
It is.
It's really good for like people with ADHD and like they pay attention and they tune in and out and they get little snippets here and there, little factoids, some discussion, some evaluation, and then 15 to 20 minutes on like a Lego set or something.
Oh man,
it never makes sense.
Don't get him started.
Yeah,
that's true. We don't have time.
We'll save that for if we ever have quads back on the show. We'll talk about Lego then. We'll
maybe. We were talking before the show we started recording. We're not canceling the show like forever. Like we think based on like how the season progresses, we'll probably do like a mid-season update of like our hot takes and predictions, which we'll be doing later on the show. We'll maybe do like an emergency episode should there be any kind of breaking trades or breaking news, like maybe Bo Horvat gets traded, maybe he gets re-signed to some kind of atrocious deal. We don't know. It's one of those seasons where things just kind of go wonky. The preseason camp has gone wonky with injuries to Travis Dermott, Ilya Mikheyev, Brock Besser, Tyler Myers. Yeah. Who am I missing? Like, it's practically everyone who plays a lot of minutes for the team is out with injury.
Do you have a pulse? If so, you're probably injured. That's basically that's the Canucks. That's the Canucks right now, or at least it seems like it. We're gonna definitely try our best, especially because and we've talked about this, I think, on the show before, that like one of the things that was so great about doing the show and getting to do it all the time is that it's our own thing. It's that we get to kind of pick and choose how much we want to do it, when we record, all sorts of those things, but also especially like after. We talked about this, I think, pretty soon after the 1040 shutdown. I guess that was over a year ago now.
Quickly after,
we talked about how like one of the big things about the show that makes it really important to us, especially, is that it's something that we have full control over and ownership over, which is rare in media today. And you're seeing a lot. I mean, we're seeing it a lot more now, which is fantastic. And that's part of the reason why we have increased roles at Canucks Army now. I don't think we've even talked about this fully on the show, because we did the little emergency episode when JT Miller got signed. And I think even at that time, I don't think they'd even announced that Wyatt was joining Canucks Army yet.
No,
I don't think that was official yet.
I got announced the same day as Wyatt.
Yes, you did. That's right. Jamie joined Canucks Army as well. All three of us.
That's right. We were, when we did the JT Miller thing, I think we were still kind of held to the oath of secrecy, because obviously they had to wait until Wyatt's contract had expired or whatever it was before they could officially announce it. They wanted to do a big rollout thing. So we were like, well, we can't announce that our show's canceled for X reasons, because people are going to figure it out pretty quickly why.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so if you don't know, Wyatt Arndt, the stanchion, has moved from the Athletic to Canucks Army. And because he is bringing the stanchies, as they're called, to Canucks Army, that's opened up a lot of jiffing opportunities for one Lachlan Irvine. And it's opened up a lot of potential writing opportunities for myself as a fill-in stanchies writer, which is going to be extremely nerve-wracking and terrifying and fun.
I'm so excited for you, buddy.
Oh god.
I'm also writing more, which is really cool too.
I've seen your articles popping up on my feed all the time. You're churning out the content over here, mister.
I sure am. I'm very excited to get to do what we're doing at Canucks Army now, especially because even last year was great, but now we get it's such a vote of confidence for what we're doing, and then especially to be able to harness that as well, just to when we were before the season, they were looking for the social media position and everything, and then Jamie got that because we were both like, Jamie, apply, do it.
Jamie is very talented at making videos. I think you really need to pick her.
Yes,
just do it. And then
she dropped that fire hype video yesterday.
Yes,
on the
if you haven't seen it, check out the Canucks Army feed to see the hype video for the season. It's fucking dope.
It's so good. Yeah,
classic Jamie fan cam action. So it's because we don't want to get too long into the pleasantries and the just revisiting why we like doing the show, because we got a lot to summarize quickly here in our final episode.
We have the end of the show for that.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm not going to be nice yet. Let's get right into oh, you really had that next on the notes, the Hockey Canada thing? Are you kidding me?
Look, I had that where you can flip that around. You can listen. I just put it there because it's important.
That's true. I guess it's technically good news because they all resigned.
You're right. It is good news. That's a good thing.
It's a little too late. It's probably should have realized this a long time ago when you were embarrassing yourselves on the public stage.
Yeah, God.
When you're uniting the liberal, conservative, Bloc Québécois against you, maybe you should realize you need some changes.
Literally, I have never seen anything like that, where it's literally every single it didn't matter your political beliefs, anything like that. Everyone is like, hey, this is really fucked up what you've done, and you need to get your ass out of here. It was incredible.
It was especially amazing because it just kept reminding me every time news or quotes would come out from Andrea Skinner or the guy that was in charge before her. Anytime there was a quote coming out, you'd get two different MPs from completely radically different parties, both just completely shitting on them. And I kept thinking of that that meme of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers in The Predator doing the handshake or whatever, uniting in pure hatred of this completely arrogant group, thinking they're above a national investigation into their funds and what they were doing. So to see them all quit, yes, kids.
Yeah, but
Beautiful.
Good. Get out of here. Hope they should never have any sort of role in hockey ever again. And it's again, it was to see the stick their head in the sand for as long as they did. And it was kind of incredible just how no matter what they did, they just dug themselves further into the hole, and they kept thinking, no, we're gonna get out. Dig up, stupid. They kept doing that, and it's insane that it took as long as it did. And I mean, good on the corporations who were hey,
finally gave them the gears, right? And we're finally we're pulling sponsorship because this is just getting too embarrassing at this point.
Yeah, some of them even gave them like somewhat of the benefit of the doubt and were like, "Hey, look, we're gonna temporarily like pause funding here if you
Yeah.
can get your act together." And then when they didn't, they're like, "Okay, look, you've run out of chances.
Yeah.
You're gone."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, we've
when they
given you
start,
guys a lot of rope.
where will but guys, who will be there to turn on the lights at every single rink in Canada now that they're gone? It's that just the dumbest thing in the world. Some of the dumbest quotes I've ever heard.
You know what's a shame is like I fully thought like the her like comment like who will keep the lights on. I fully thought when everybody announced their resignation, you were gonna have like every volunteer at like rinks across Canada posting videos of them just like flicking lights off and on just to like be like fuck you.
Yeah.
Like anyway, so yeah, I read Hockey Canada and my brain immediately went to oh no, but then yeah, I remembered
Yeah. I
the
mean,
actual positive steps were taken, which is
yeah.
nice.
So the one question I have now is, right, because and this is not me so much playing like I don't want this to be construed as me like playing like devil's advocate or something here. My question is like, because they're all gone, who's actually in charge of like picking the replacements here? Because is it somebody else who also already has a connection to Hockey Canada? Because that's my biggest worry now, is that, oh, they're going to just replace them with a bunch of people who are basically the same as the last group, right? So who's actually in charge of like replacing everybody?
That's a good question because I feel like the board of directors at one point were all like high ranking officials from like the major Canadian leagues, like the OHL, the Q, the WHL. Like it wasn't like some random guy with no ties to hockey. It was usually like some representative of like a body of owners or whoever. So it's like, do the owners like nominate people? Do they vote for people? Like, is it just
Yeah,
going to be
right.
like the people that left? Is it just going to be their friends who get
Yeah.
appointed?
Because the whole reason that the government had to even like, like look at their financials and everything is because of course they're not a government run like
Mhm.
organization. And I
Yeah.
think people think that they are, which is why they kind of got free reign to operate as they did for so long. Because when you think
Yes.
of like a sports organization, especially one called Hockey Canada, you're thinking, oh, well, this must have
It's a
regular
nationalized
government.
thing. Yeah.
Right, it must have government oversight, but it doesn't really.
No.
It's a nonprofit organization, or so they claim. That it's like
Totally.
in the same way that FIFA is a nonprofit organization, really.
Mhm.
That like they were able to kind of operate as they did for so long. And yeah, my biggest concern now is, okay, people need to, just because they resigned and everything doesn't mean the story's over in any way, shape, or form. It means
Mhm.
that now you have to keep vigilant on, okay, who's in charge next, and are they gonna put people in charge that will actually make a difference here? Like somebody like, for example, who might make a good candidate here is somebody like Sheldon Kennedy, somebody who's been very like open
Mhm.
and upfront about why this needs to change and why there are problems in hockey culture today. Somebody
Yeah.
like Akeem Aliu might be a good
Yeah.
somebody to be looking at. Again, and I don't know if these positions are paid or if because it's a nonprofit, it's like a volunteer thing. I don't know exactly how that works, but like the kinds
Mhm.
of people that you want are the people that were the most vocal about issues
Change.
with this, and that were demanding for change the most. So hopefully they go look in that direction.
Maybe they just hire Rick Westhead.
That honestly, that would be a very good choice. Like, I don't think he would. I think he's
I don't think he'd
probably
take the
doing
job,
just
but
fine. I don't think
yeah.
he'd take the job, but if they offered it to him, like
Yeah.
that's honestly
You
a good person to be offering that kind of a job to. Like, yeah, or
you
Katie
got my
Strang.
vote, Rick. You got my
Yeah.
vote. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, good for him. He like, then Katie Strang as well, like have done wonders and are
Yeah.
continuing to work wonders on just like this kind of stuff in hockey and in other sports as well. Like
Yeah.
there's
Just
the so-
single-handedly
there's
just
the Soccer
great.
Canada thing too.
Yeah, like they're single-handedly, but like the two of them single-handedly are taking down like complete like institutions, like giant institutions that have existed for years and years, unchecked by the government, by people, by anyone, and they're bringing them down just by literally reporting news that is
Yeah.
being brought to them in the lineups of Starbucks.
Yeah, I absolutely oh yeah, there was that too. God. I absolutely loved the photo that I think Katie Strang posted of the two of them like hanging out or whatever, being like, it's not always depressing when we hang out when we hang out. And I was like, oh, I love
Yeah,
that. I actually love that.
yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Well, speaking of depressing when we hang out, let's get into the Vancouver Canucks. No, it's
Jesus.
okay.
That's a
Er-
great segue, but
early
also
hot
wow.
take. Early hot take. There's obviously going to be some hot takes to come as we get into our Canucks discussion. I don't think this season will be a complete tire fire.
Oh my god.
I know, what a take, huh?
Yes. What we promise we
The
won't.
standard.
entirely
The
suck.
My
Yeah.
ice cold heart has warmed ever so slightly.
That's
The
a great.
standard has gone up.
Yeah. But yeah, so folks, obviously we like kind of alluded to some of the injuries that they were experiencing before the season. We are recording like an hour before puck drop against the Edmonton Oilers, the team's first game of the season. I guess you're listening to this
If you're
Friday or
listening to this,
Thursday
you'll be
morning.
listening to this in the morning after. So
Yeah.
they'll have so either everything we've said is now completely irrelevant, or
Yeah.
everything we said was right on the money. There's no medium. It's either
Mhm.
or.
Yeah. So if you haven't really checked in on the Canucks through the offseason, this is basically the Cole's Notes version. The defense was more or less the exact same. It'll look different because of the injuries to Travis Dermott and Tyler Myers, but it's pretty much the same. There's a lot of 7th, 8th, and 9th defensemen throughout the system, but there's no like secondary Quinn Hughes coming. It's still just riding on Quinn Hughes, OEL, and eventually Tyler Myers to carry this load. Maybe Jack Rathbone is something.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. There wasn't
Yeah.
really a market for it in free agency, and they didn't really there wasn't a trade that they didn't make a trade to fix anything like or
it's like
at least in the defensive side of things. That just wasn't there.
their cap situation created a scenario wherein
kerfuffle.
they had to their cap kerfuffle
Yeah.
created a situation in which they had to offload a player in Jason Dickinson and a second round pick for 2024 just to get another fringe NHL defenseman in return.
Yeah, that was the
rough.
Jason Dickinson trade was interesting. I wonder like, and I wonder, do you think that was like a trade that they made more so because Myers got hurt rather than a salary cap issue per se? Because that came out, because that trade happened, I think, or was announced. That was during the Coyotes game. By that point, we already I forget if we already knew that Myers was injured or if that was coming the next day.
Didn't he play in that game?
He did not play in that game, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
He didn't play in that game.
Maybe,
I could
but
be wrong.
I think still because of there was rumors that they were trying to offload Michael Furlan's contract, which was
That's right.
pretty well the same amount of money as Jason Dickinson's. So I feel like it can be both, where they needed some more help on the blue line. They like Christian Wolanin or whatever, but they weren't confident enough to, I guess, keep him up with the team, and they needed to offset some money, so Jake Dickinson had to go out. So it's a bit of both, like satisfying two needs at once, where they could satisfy their ability to create a cap compliant roster, and they get some kind of depth in return. Obviously, I know this was a devastating trade for our producer here, Jamie, because like most players in the NHL who are marginal at best, Jamie adores them to the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
I had a good laugh when we both, because we obviously have our CreaseCast group chat, and we posted the trade in there. Like, oh my god, what a terrible trade! They got rid of a second, and Jamie's like, no, not Jason Dickinson. And we're like,
actually,
him?
You know what? Actually, I wasn't as affected as one of my friends was.
Oh, really?
She was like devastated. She was like, now I know how it feels whenever any of your people leave. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, you definitely. Yeah. Wow.
I mean,
Jason Dickinson being traded is definitely the same as like what Gaudette.
It does.
Lamoureux.
Oh,
yeah. It's the same.
Look, at least Lamoureux scored.
That's true.
That's true.
The tragedy is that Jason
Yeah.
Dickinson is like off ice, just like a really cool
Yes.
dude,
That's
and like
true. Very
he's
true.
really handsome, and it's just like you just needed him to give a bit more on the ice, and like maybe he rebounds, because it's a very Canucks thing for them to get like a UFA fourth, third line center, and they suck in their first year, and then they usually walk away from them rather than trying to see if they can rebound.
Yeah.
So maybe he would have done it, but like that's why I think it was like a really leaning on it being a cap decision to get rid of him.
Yeah.
But
I
too
think,
bad. He's
yeah,
a cool dude.
yeah, I wrote about him in my I wrote like a little like kind of just recap of his time here for Canucks Army, and one of the thing and the comparables I brought up, and I brought this up when they were looking at initially trading him back in March before the trade deadline. The two
Mm,
names I brought up in particular were Nate Schmidt and Braden Holtby, two guys who they had gotten on these gotten for relatively cheap based on their resumes,
yeah.
and both did not pan out, and then they immediately let them go. And I think again, I think even like in Schmidt's case, he kind of rebounded when he went to Winnipeg. Like, not necessarily, he's not back to like Vegas Nate Schmidt yet, or anything, but he's
Mhm.
did clearly better with Winnipeg. And Holtby had a really good run with Dallas up until
Yeah.
he got so hurt that I think he's retiring potentially this year.
Huh.
I don't think he's on a team technically. I think he might still
That's right.
technically be under contract with Dallas, but he's not playing as far as I know.
Yeah.
And both of those cases were like, I don't think that they're bad players. And Dickinson, I think, is in the same boat where I don't think Dickinson is a bad player by any stretch. I think it was just a bad fit. Like, it was just clearly
Yeah.
a case where, oh, there's nothing that's going to get him going on this particular team playing in this particular system. Because even when they
Mhm.
made the coaching change from Travis Green to Bruce Boudreau, Dickinson was like the one player that you didn't see. He didn't get worse and he didn't get better either. He kind of
Yeah.
just stuck exactly where he was. And there was like, that was partially bad luck. It's partially injury issues, like all sorts of things. Just whatever they tried didn't work with him. And honestly, like, I was kind of just like, yeah, I kind of get it. I think it's better to just move on. I don't think it was going to get much better here in Vancouver for him. I think he might do better in Chicago, but it won't be because like, I think it'll just be because, hey, he's in a better situation than he was before for what makes him a good player.
If anything, my prediction is he'll just be completely fine because Chicago's a tire fire.
Yeah, he
And
does not have to be that good to be a good player
yeah,
on the Blackhawks this year.
he'll certainly be a Chicago Blackhawk.
Watch
That's
him
That
watch him
sucks.
go absolutely off, like on the Blackhawks, to the point where they lose
he's
out
like
on Connor Bedard.
that would be the best gift you could give
Oh
Canucks fans.
Like, he
Like,
scores the overtime winner in like one game, in like game 80, that keeps them from clinching 32nd, and like Arizona or
I love it.
God
Montreal
bless
takes it.
Jason
That'd be
Dickinson.
Jason Dickinson would get his jersey retired in Vancouver if he
God
did that.
bless.
Like,
I
God bless Jason
I
Dickinson.
do it,
absolutely love
Jason.
this. I absolutely love this storyline. I hope it comes true.
Me
So
too.
obviously, by trading Jason Dickinson, the team kind of, I mean, they still had forward depth. Like, their top nine is really good, even with Ilya Mikheyev not available to them because of injury. Like, you look at it on paper, like when they were tweeting out lines today, and you're like, outside of the fourth line, which is centered by a rookie, like, it's
Who
pretty damn good. Like,
Shout out to
once,
Nil Zaman. Like,
yeah,
Jesus,
good for him.
he was nowhere on my bingo card making this team. So for him to do it, like,
No,
holy cow, good for him.
He's
because
getting his
it's
opportunity because there's injuries.
I think
Yeah.
he actually just earned it, though.
Yeah,
I
'cause
think
they-
Neil
Honestly,
Zaman
yeah.
outplayed Jason Dickinson and
He and
all those
he out-
guys that were competing for a fourth line center spot because he was such a good skater.
yeah,
And it's just like, to your point, Lachlan, like, it's so funny that he came out of nowhere because I think I wrote something for Canucks Army, or I tweeted something about like prospective lines, and I literally wrote Neil Zaman will probably start in the AHL on the fourth line because he's been so unremarkable at training camp thus far. And this
Yeah.
is like, like a week into it or whatever. And this is based off of like the hearsay from, Dan Murphy and from Quads and Faber and Thomas Stranson, their reporting of what was happening at camp. So it's like, it's so wild. Like 3 weeks later, the guy's about to make his debut against Connor McDavid and
Yeah.
Leon Draisaitl.
yeah, and that's
Like,
not
good
to
for him.
Yeah, and like, that's not even to say that, like, even like when he was bad during training camp, it wasn't like, wow, this guy is clearly bad. It was just like, well, he's probably still just the fact that he's never played in North America before.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't like a high draft pick or
It-
anything. Like, he's not coming in as like the next great savior or something like that. It was like, well, yeah, of course he's going to probably go to the AHL to considering he's never played on North American ice before.
Yeah.
So for him to, like there were other options there, like Phil DiGiuseppe, Danila Klimovich might have been considered at some point. There are obviously guys like Will Lockwood, Sheldon Dries, who were going to get opportunities. So for him to beat out all those guys onto just the starting opening night roster is incredible. Yeah.
I think
on the team tonight.
Do it. Sorry.
Dries, isn't he on the opening roster?
He just got called up.
He just got, I think he flew with the team, but for whatever reason, even though in the AHL he's always been deployed as a center, the Canucks have almost exclusively used him as a winger in the NHL. So I think the fourth line center spot was kind of like, okay, between Amon, Lazar, Joshua, and like a couple other pivots at camp that can either do the center or the wing, who's gonna, earn the spot the most. And it's wild that it's this kid who most pegged to be like, okay, he needs the AHL because of seasoning or whatever, which would have been totally understandable. So the fact that he's carved out a spot where no one's even second guessing it, they're just like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Which is cool because 2 Neils on one team, kind of cool.
Yeah.
How often does that happen?
Probably never.
Probably never.
Unless you're in Sweden.
Unless you're in Sweden.
Yeah.
It's probably happened once.
You know how weird it would be if Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, made the team somehow, and you had 2 Elias Petterssons.
I gotta be honest, I am
Neils.
already dreading that day because I'm watching these. Whenever I see the Elias Pettersson is doing really well in the SHL, I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you my brain for a split second will go, what are you talking about? It's from 3 years ago.
Not great. Yeah.
I gotta say, I don't know if they hot take. I don't know if they can ever play him for the Canucks because he has the exact same name. I'm like, this is gonna get so confusing so fast.
I only want him to succeed because there's a world where Elias Pettersson is number 40, and then this new Elias Pettersson, his number is 42. Just the wordplay of 40 as well is so cool.
That's so
even if he sucks, I won't even care. If he's like Good Branson when he was here, I wouldn't care. This number's 42.
I want him here.
Yeah. I need this guy in my life.
I need him in my roster sometime in the future. It's just so I can watch them two play.
Thing 1 and thing 2.
I just want an Elias Pettersson goal.
The Canucks Halloween party.
Exactly.
I mean, the Canucks have had that happen before, which is very funny that they're now the other team that can have that happen because they had 2 Greg Adams at the exact same time.
Yeah. They would have the stupidest history where it's they don't have any cups, but they had 2 Greg Adams at one point. They had a pair of twins and now 2 Elias Petterssons.
That's
who needs Stanley Cups when you've got this behind you.
And 2 Nils, and there you go.
And 2 Nils,
It's just keep coming.
No
one else can have that. Yeah.
Double everything.
So we talked about it slightly. Bo Horvat, I think the big discussion right now is that Bo Horvat doesn't have a contract.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought that Bo Horvat would be the easy contract to do and JT Miller would be the hard contract to get done. And on the precipice of the season, Bo Horvat still doesn't have a contract. And by some of the reporting from Elliot Friedman and Rick Dollywall, doesn't really sound like they are close whatsoever or really even talking at this point about a contract. So we'll get into my hot takes later in the show. But what do you think this means for Bo Horvat and the team? Because obviously we know there's tons of asterisk when it comes to players, because it's at the trade deadline, if the team is out of a playoff spot, do they trade Horvat? Or if they are in a playoff spot, do they just hope for the best and try and re-sign him? What is both of your twos feel for this situation here?
I mean, I'm thinking so when we talked about the Miller extension and that coming through, that came out of nowhere. You got remember that came out of nowhere, and that because there had been weeks of oh, they're not close. They're nowhere near the number that they want to be at this point. That was going on for weeks leading up to when they actually signed him. So even when they're saying right now, when the experts are saying they're not close, I'm kind of taking that with a grain of salt, simply because that can change in a day. Like that,
Sure.
it really all it takes is one phone call to be like, all right, fine, we'll take this kind of thing, right? Or
Yeah.
we'll make this work, kind of, et cetera, right? It's so fluid on how quickly that's a situation like that can change. I mean, I've talked about it before that, like, I think when it comes to Bo Horvat in particular, maybe he's never going to be your top goal scorer. He's never going to be your top point getter per se. But I think just from a pure what he brings to the team as far as leadership goes, like any sort of situation where they lose him is not a good choice for me, in my opinion. Like, I mean, if you replace him with somebody that has just as good leadership qualities on a better deal, like a deal in terms of like what you're getting out of it, then sure, I guess. But like, even then, I'm just looking at what, I look at the track record and like what a decent job he's done, particularly since he became captain of the team and taking that responsibility off the ice. Like, and we've talked about this at length before on this show, that he does a really good job of like, he understands what market he's playing in probably better than anybody. And especially like considering he inherited the captaincy from the Sedins, like everything that comes with that, like that losing him would be a choice that I would not be particularly thrilled about if it went through. So, I mean, I hope they find a number that works. But again, this is one of those, well, if you just, if the previous group had managed the cap a little better and the current group hadn't allocated so much money to other
Jason
places
Dickinson.
right away, maybe we'd be in a better spot here where it wouldn't really matter. So
all those compounding cuts really starting to hurt him a bit, where Elias Pettersson, based on his preseason, is going to just much command a lot of money when his current deal is up. So you combine that with like needing to find a place for Bo Horvat in your lineup, like it's a little scary.
Yeah,
Jamie, are you where are you on the Bo Horvat situation? Obviously, he's no Jason Dickinson. He's no Niels Hoglander. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how 1 being get rid of him, I don't care, and 10 being he must be here forever, where are you?
I'm at like an 8 or a 9. I really do like Bo Horvat. He's really good and he can do a lot of defensive things that we need. So like he's probably quite necessary on this team in order for us to succeed. So
that is kind of the funny thing, right? Is that so much was made of like, oh, Miller's not a center, like he's a better winger, like that's why you don't really need to re-sign him. And then it's like, okay, well, if you lose Horvat, you absolutely do need Miller as your center, because then you have nothing on the wings and you got nothing coming from behind. Like Sheldon Dries is going to be that guy. Is Neil Zaman going to be Bo Horvat 2.0? Like, I don't know.
Depth isn't that great, especially at center. So it's like
I joked in our Twitter chat that I have to redo the entire AHL preview I did because I'm an idiot first off and didn't think, or I for some reason thought like, oh, Sheldon Dries lost his spot to Linus Karlsson and Neil Zaman. Karlsson is only on the AHL roster because they're going to call him up immediately just based on how lines and practices had gone every day leading up to this game. And then sure enough, Sheldon Dries gets called up and Linus Karlsson is apparently going to stick in the AHL to start the year. And then, so I'm looking at like the depth chart at center and I'm like, oh my God, it is, there's nothing.
It's slim pickings. There's Phil DiGiuseppe and then that's kind of it.
But all their centers, and I'm using air quotes for our non YouTube watchers, all their centers are wingers. Like they're pivots. It's Justin Dowling who's injured. It's Phil DiGiuseppe who's also injured. And then there's John Stevens, who like is not a factor for them at all. Chase Waters, who's on an AHL contract.
Yeah.
Tristan Nielsen, who's on an AHL contract. Will Lockwood, who's only ever played wing in the AHL or the NHL. And then 2 ECHL PTOs. So it's like, they got nothing. They have absolutely nothing coming after Sheldon Dries, assuming they would stick him as a center if like worse came to worse. They have nothing else. And it's like, here we are like lamenting like injuries in preseason and how like it makes the defense look bad. They are like an injury to Horvat or Miller or Pettersson away from just like going in the tank,
Yeah,
which would be good because Connor Bedard's coming, and that guy loves himself some Vancouver Canucks.
Yes, he does.
He loves his Canucks.
That video that Faber posted today of him of him just saying his playoff pick was the Canucks by
easy,
no question. Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm like, oh, this kid needs to come. His favorite player was Tyler Mott. Tyler Mott. Like, this kid belongs on the Canucks so clearly. But yeah, like, I will say the one silver lining is that, like you mentioned, when it comes to like the pivots and everything, all of the guys on their fourth line currently are also pivots in that regard. Like, Joshua can play center, I believe. Curtis Lazar can definitely play center. So it's not going to be.
It's not completely doom and gloom,
crippling, but it will.
At the same time,
be good. It won't be good. Like,
yeah. And when Ilya Mikheyev comes back, that'll push someone like Niels Hoglander down the lineup or whoever it is. So it's like, it's not completely doom and gloom, but it just kind of shows like the line that they're riding right now for this team to succeed. Where
it's a Jenga tower.
Yeah, like, all it takes is a few injuries, and then suddenly you're completely shuffling this lineup that has mostly remained unchanged throughout preseason. Like, all the lines have mostly been the same. Bruce Boudreau talked about it during camp that he wanted lines basically start like the same ones that started camp to finish camp and start the season with, so that they would have the chemistry. Obviously, that didn't happen with some injuries, but like,
I was gonna say, he made it 2 days with that thought process, and then Besser got hurt, so he couldn't play the Miller line as he wanted, like with Pearson, which is also good for Tanner Pearson on the first line, like staying there.
Good for him, bad for the team.
No, yeah, it's one of those. If your team is doing well, Tanner Pearson probably shouldn't be on your first line wing, but like, it's not his fault. But I mean, although you could very well make an argument that the actual first line is Elias Pettersson with Andrei Kuzmenko and Nils Hoglander. Like, that's your actual first line. In a lot of ways.
It doesn't even matter. Like, when they're doing lines, it's too like Pettersson and Hoglander, Kuzmenko were skating out thirds, so it doesn't even matter who, like, where they're slotted in the lineup.
Yeah,
like, they're all expected to score.
I'm really interested to get your opinion on Kuzmenko, Cody, because I know you weren't particularly sold on him coming into camp, that he was going to be NHL caliber. So what are you thinking so far?
Well, I have a feeling he's going to make me eat my words, because obviously I had the entire article being like, temper your expectations, because he only had one good season in the KHL, and by like historical standards, it wasn't that great.
To be fair, though, that's a good rule for any new guy coming in, is please don't put all your eggs onto this basket. It is not fair to the player for you to do that.
And it's very Vancouver Canucks fan like of people to like put like lofty expectations on this random player. Like,
I'm still
like, speaking of Jalen Chatfield, who we were talking about earlier, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's exactly like Chris Tanev because he doesn't score." And it's like, no, boy. He does not score at the AHL level because he's not good.
I'm still scarred by people going. Yeah, I'm still scarred by people going like, "Oh, Adam Gaudette's coming out of college to play center. That means he's the next Ryan Kessler." And it's like, no,
I know.
If he's half the player that Ryan Kessler is, you should be thrilled. And that's not because Gaudette's not good. It's just because that is a huge amount of pressure to put on a guy. Like, come on.
It was a bit of both, right? It was obviously the fan base like getting super hyped, but it's also the GM of the time who would draft a person and be like, "Oh yeah, we drafted Olli Juolevi, and he's basically going to be our Edler in a couple of years." And it's like,
which player was
comparing him to like the one of the best defensemen of the Canucks' entire history?
Was it Juolevi that Jim Benning also compared to Nicklas Lidstrom? Was that him? Because he definitely made
did compare someone,
Lidstrom
but
comparable to a defenseman. I'm just like, I think it
was someone way worse, to be honest. Like, I think his whole thing. Because remember he compared. Oh fuck, who was it? It was some Russian kid like Dmitry Zukhanov or something.
Was it?
And he's like Pavel Datsuk.
Oh boy, like there was the whole Nikita Trampkin thing where he was like, "Oh, this is going to be our Zdeno Chara."
This is our Chris Pronger.
It's
why are you?
He had
a really funny one. It was like someone really like not remarkable at all. He was like, this guy's exactly like Patrice Bergeron, and it was like, bro, just talking about your players. Like, holy shit,
like,
man.
Yeah, like it's for you to put that kind of a label on them is kind of mean. Like,
Yeah, it's just like
do
cruel. And that's what he did with Jalen Chatfield when he was like, yeah, he's gonna be like Chris Tanev. It's like, dude.
No.
Anyway, we don't want to talk about Jim Benning because this is obviously a happy episode.
Sort of, yeah.
He got fired, so there's some happy news for you.
Yay.
All right. So what are we thinking? Do we want to get into our NHL predictions, our season predictions? And I guess we'll start with Pacific Division and whether or not we think the Canucks are going to do it or not.
Yes, that's a great way to start.
I have a feeling.
Okay.
Bear with me. I have a feeling the Central Division is going to be dog shit this year. So I have a feeling.
Central Division. Okay.
I have a feeling the 2 wildcard teams are both coming out of the Pacific this year.
Wow.
I agree with that. I fully agree with that, actually.
Wow.
I think that's good news for Vancouver because I think they're going to be one of those wildcard teams. And I think Vegas or LA is going to be the other one.
Well, I think both of them, right? Because, one of them's going to be you're just saying like who will make it in the wild card spot because one of them will be in the third place spot.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because I liked that Nashville picked up
Ryan
McDonough.
Nino, thank you. I always think of I don't know why.
I love Nino.
For whatever reason, I always mistake Niederreiter with Mika Zibanejad, even though they have like nothing in common.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but anyway.
It's the long last name.
Yeah, probably that. So
they rhyme. No.
Those two, and then Matt Zuccarello too. All three of them kind of just mold into like one player, which is probably how my brain operates. I don't think despite liking that, Jussi Saros is good. Roman Josi is very good. I just don't think Nashville has enough as a whole to really make waves. They got destroyed by Colorado last year, and I don't think they really improved that much.
They got
Saros
older.
They got older.
Yeah,
they didn't really get.
Saros got hurt, which completely showed everybody. Oh, if they don't have a goalie, they're completely screwed.
They're not good.
Yeah, they're not a good team. Jussi Saros arguably should have won the Hart Trophy just based on that alone. Like he should have just been like, he clearly was holding on to this team with duct tape and super glue. Like that was
poor Connor Ingram had to go in against the Avalanche.
That sucks.
He did
really good on his
David
first game, especially.
He did very good behind a team that had absolutely nothing going for them.
He got them to 0-0 to overtime in game 2, I think. That was incredible.
Yeah. But I think the top 3, I think probably it's going to be the same for you two as well. It's probably going to be some kind of combination of Colorado, Minnesota, and then maybe Nashville beats out St. Louis, but I think St. Louis is just getting too old.
Well, St. Louis has actually made decent, haven't they made some decent picks? Like, they actually look, I think, a little better this year than they did last year.
I think they're just in the same boat as Nashville, where they're just significantly older and their goaltending is not sorting itself out.
Yeah, because they added Noel Acciari. I think there was one. I feel like there was one trade that they made that looked relatively good on paper, unless I'm mistaken. I should check.
Well, they have Robert Thomas.
Yeah.
That might be it.
I think what you're thinking of is they extended all their youngish stars, like they
which is
extended
good.
Thomas.
It's
and,
a good thing,
Kyrou, right? Which is smart.
Yeah, Jordan Kyrou. That's the big one for sure.
That's the big one.
Maybe they get in based off of Ryan O'Reilly trying to get paid one final time because he's an expiring UFA.
Oh, I forgot. You know who's on the Blues that made the Blues out of camp? Josh Levo.
Did he really?
I thought it was on waivers.
He did. He made the team. Apparently, he's literally listed on the 4th line with Acciari and Nathan Walker.
That means that Highmore didn't make the team.
Yeah, he's on waivers. That's right.
Yeah, so he's on waivers. Yeah.
Nobody noticed. Anyway.
He's like Anne from Arrested Development, where they're like, who? Yeah. They just forget. They just Matthew Highmore.
Okay,
remember?
I've had enough of this.
Him?
Enough. I've had enough.
Okay, so you obviously Arizona, Chicago, Winnipeg, Dallas, bottom 4 for sure. Dallas, that's what
Dallas
you say about
would probably be like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Central is that like they've consistently like not been drafting and kind of getting older and not really replacing players at the rate that at they age. And the Pacific has consistently gotten younger with the exception of like Vegas, who's just like only going after the stars.
Yeah. I
So
mean, yeah.
that's why I think
Vegas
like the
is
Central
weird.
is just going to be bad, pretty much.
Dallas is a great example of that because I mean, how long did it take for them to even get the Jason Robertson contract done? But more importantly, there was like that whole quote from the owner of the team who was like, "It's not fair how these young guys get paid
Yeah, yeah,
in favor of the veterans." It's like it's almost like they're way better and also way more important. Like
weird.
It's
yeah,
not
Weird
maybe
like
how
they're
that
that
your
works, buddy.
future or
and
anything, you
and
know.
if he's your owner, that's your owner talking. It's like, maybe they're not going to make particularly good choices
Mhm.
in terms of how they run their operation there. So yeah, you're right. I think the Central Division is going to be what the Metro Division was last year, where it was just so top heavy. It was
Yeah,
like four teams because like last year, what the four teams in the Metro all finished with 100 points, and then the team in like
it
fifth finished with like 80. Like it was a
there was
clear cav. Like it
there
was a
was some like
canyon.
math too where it was like the top 4 of the Metro had their spots secured by like late November. Like it
Yeah.
just like there was no comeback attempt for the bottom 4 even as wildcard teams either.
I think that was the whole East was like the whole
Yeah,
East was wrapped
it
up
wasn't
by
even
November and
close.
it
Yeah.
didn't change for the
Yeah.
rest of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Central will probably be the same situation, but yeah, my take is that I think it's going to be all Pacific wildcard. I don't think the Central's got it in them this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree with you on that. I think here, I guess my hot take would be that I actually think, okay, so people are saying that like, oh, don't sleep on the Knights, right? With Vegas in particular, first of all, they did improve at coach with Bruce Cassidy.
Good grab.
100%.
That was a very good pick, especially for what they want to do. That's a
Mhm.
huge get for them. But I also am just kind of looking at them like, okay, so Robin Leonard is not playing this year, or at the very least isn't going to be there for a good part of the beginning of the year because he got surgery. And that's partially because you pissed him off to the point where he was like, okay, I'm going to get surgery at the last minute. And then, tough luck for you. And like, yeah, because they literally did the whole thing where they like what? Pete DeBoer was blaming him for being out of commission. Like, what are you doing? Like, just atrocious goaltending handling by Pete DeBoer, par for the course. But now they're running with Logan Thompson, and I remember I was watching their game last night, and they were talking about how Laurent Brossoit is probably going to get a lot of chances to play this year, and it's like,
Mhm.
ooh, if that's the route you're going, I don't really know how well you're going to do because like Logan Thompson did fine for what he was able to last year, but I think we've talked about this before that Fleury and Leonard were both like masking a lot of problems for the Golden Knights that you
Mhm.
didn't realize were an issue until they had just okay goaltending with Logan
Yeah.
Thompson, and then they missed the playoffs. It's like, okay, that's probably, yeah, that sounds about right. They did add Phil Kessel, but like I
Poor
honestly
guy.
think that on
Love Phil Kessel.
paper, or maybe not on paper, but on like as far as from what I've seen, I honestly think there is a world where the Canucks are finish higher than the Knights in this division. Like I think
I
there's definitely a world where that happens.
Let me expand on your point. I think the fact that Fleury and Lehner did mask so many of their defensive issues, I can guarantee that having someone like Laurent Brossoit or whoever their other guy is in
Logan
net,
Thompson.
Logan Thompson, whoever those two are, I think that's going to force the team into playing really tight hockey. And because of that, they're basically going to be like the Abs this year, where they are just like, going gangbusters. Like we saw the game against the Kings last night where they dominated something like 54 shots on goal at 5v5, something insane.
Oh,
Like,
poor Jonathan Quick.
yeah, and
Yeah.
hey,
Old Jonathan Quick.
shout out to
Old-
old man Quickie for
Old
standing
crippled
up.
Jonathan
That
Quick.
goal, by the way,
What a guy.
that play, like Mark Stone, great shot, but also that goal should not have happened. Like that was
Absolutely not.
That was
But
a galaxy brain decision of we're going to eat off like 30 seconds of the last minute of play, but then make a panic stretch pass
Yeah.
like into the zone that gets stolen.
It-
Like, Yeah.
And that's why I think they'll probably get in because they've got enough experience in their lineup to know how to play in front of an inexperienced or like a youngish tandem where they're going to be committed to the defensive side of things. That's why I always like to say like the Canucks are who they are when Thatcher Demko is injured or not in the lineup because you see how they play not in front of an elite talent goaltender and it looks terrible.
Oh
So
God.
for the Vegas, I think it's going to be
Scary.
like they're going to basically do a Colorado. They're just going to try and storm out of the gates and probably run ramshod over the division through oppressive 5v5 skills and probably will do it that way. Los Angeles is young enough and stupid enough that they'll probably get in as a wild card team, if not as the third seed. Vegas,
Los Angeles is
Anaheim,
fun. They're
yeah,
really
they're fun.
fun.
Like they're a bunch of young kids and they're like
And
they
also
have
Alex
terrible goal
Edler.
scoring rates, but like
I love
they're fun.
Alex Edler. What a
Everybody
guy.
loves Alex Edler.
Well,
He's so fun.
You saw JD Burke's tweet yesterday where he's like Alex Edler still being deployed in a matchup role at 37 years old and holding his own. Like,
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Literally, like
He's the
I think he
best.
brought up that it was like clearly the foot speed is gone, but
Mhm.
like the rest of it is still clearly there for him and good for Alex Edler.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love
And
that for him.
I think too, like obviously we're not going to spend time talking about them because they are probably not going to be playoff teams, but Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose, they got some young talent that's going to be fun, but
Yeah,
like,
and that, but
they're
also
still a
Anaheim
few
signed
years
like
away.
who did they? What was the weird signing they made this year? Oh, the Ryan
The guy from
Strome or John
Dallas.
Klingberg. Yeah, John
John Klingberg for
Klingberg.
1 year, which
What a
based
weird
on
call.
how who's their GM again?
Their GM is a new guy. I'm forgetting.
Former player.
He's on his
Ken?
first. He's on his first deal.
Dan?
I'll look it up. I'll look it up in the
Hitchens?
meantime.
Hitch Danson is his name.
Interesting.
Um,
And then Ducks GM is Pat Verbeek.
that's pretty close. So Pat
Yeah.
Verbeek strikes me as the type that signed that deal with whoever we just said,
Klingberg?
Yeah,
Klingberg, with a full intention and mutual understanding that they are going to flip him at the deadline at 50% retained to whoever's going to bid for his services.
The Thomas
And
Vanek.
there's so many people that are talking about Jacob Chikrin being done in Arizona and Edmonton being on him. Well, if you're Pat Verbeek, you're pitching to all of these teams in on Chikrin, and you're like, look, I've got this other guy. He's 1 year, $3.5 million. You want to push for playoffs? Give me whatever you got, and I'll take it. Like that guy knows the young core he has, and knows he still has like a ways to go.
Yeah.
So I could fully just see them like torching their veteran core again, just to keep stockpiling assets. That's just like the vibe I get, which would be very fun.
Yeah. You know what's weird? You know who we haven't talked about yet that's really insane is Calgary. Because they
Well,
went.
we kind of
like,
did.
We
When
kind
we
of
did the JT Miller episode.
I guess we did talk about them a little bit. Had the Kadri signing happened? Yeah, it did, because that happened before the Miller deal. That's right. But holy cow, the fact that I mean, I think the Flames are way better this year. I don't think that's crazy to say that I think they're much better now than they were a couple months ago, where they've got, instead of, rather than Gaudreau and Kachuk and Monahan, who I think just scored. Was that Sean Monahan who just scored? It was Sean Monahan who just scored.
Oh my God, good for him.
With 2.5 minutes to go, the Canadians lead 3-2 on a goal by Sean Monahan.
Let's go!
What a start.
I could have sworn, didn't the Habs say he's going on LTI to start the year?
Apparently not.
Okay, well
he's
cool,
right there, so
that's great.
Unless that's Carey Price in Sean Monahan's gear, that would be
probably.
which would be really funny that if they did that. But yeah, like the Flames now, they have Jonathan Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, and Mackenzie Weegar. What an upgrade for them!
As if their defense didn't need to get any better. They go from
Yes,
Branson to Mackenzie Weegar. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, that's right. They replaced Eric and Branson with Mackenzie Weegar.
Wow, what an upgrade!
I was so ready to watch like Brad Treliving showed his walking papers. Only for him to be like, oh, just kidding. I mean, he still could, but
he's signed a lot of these guys to long-term deals. So if it goes haywire again this year in the playoffs and it goes haywire again next year, he's probably toast, but
he's got
not a problem. He's got a good core going for him. Like, I'd be shocked if they're not first or second in the division.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
easily. It all comes down to, is Jack Campbell going to be as good as Edmonton thinks he can be playing in the system that Edmonton has, which Honestly, it might be.
Yeah,
They might be okay this time around.
yeah. I think
Oh,
they
I'm
were
really
saying.
Nylander scored.
I think Connor McDavid said too he was going to be more of a goal scorer this year too, which is terrifying.
More of a goal scorer.
He's just like
Excuse me?
deciding
Gonna do
casually like I'm
Yeah,
going
I'm
to
just
score
gonna-
goals again.
End
I'm
to
just gonna
end
be.
every
I'm just
game.
gonna. Yeah, God Lord, I'm just
Like, do you
gonna
remember
be
last
better.
year in like the first like few games, he was like, "Oh, I started working on my slap shot because I don't use it that much, or my one timer."
rip.
And like, I for people like me, I was like, "Wait, he's not been using a one
What do you
timer
mean
this
you
entire
haven't been
time."
using it this whole
Yeah,
time?
just like the fear in your eyes of like, "Oh God, this guy's a freak."
He's working on it. He says he's working on it. It's too
Yeah, it's-
fluffy, apparently.
That's insanity. So anyway, let's get into the East because Canucks game's starting soon, and I really want to watch it. Atlantic, I feel like it's still the same thing.
I hope the
Still the same
Sens do
top
something.
three.
Me too.
I hope.
I
I'm the same
really
way,
want
but
them to do something.
I'm the same way, but with Buffalo, because
Oh,
kind of
Buffalo,
like
yeah.
Vancouver, like I like their prospect system, and it would just be nice to like get a shakeup for a change. Like anytime like a division kind of sees like a shift of who's the top and at the bottom, like is fun. It's never fun when it's like every single year, Tampa, Toronto, Boston,
Yeah.
and everyone else. You know?
Well, I'll tell you where the shakeups are here. The number one shakeup is Florida, because I don't think Florida's going
Yeah.
to be anywhere near as good as they were last year. That's because you trade. I don't know if I don't really understand the thought process behind trading Jonathan Huberdeau to get Matthew Tkachuk. I don't know if I understand the reasoning and the logic there, especially because I've heard people talk about like quietly Jonathan Huberdeau is a guy who could be a Hart Trophy candidate for his play. I wonder if this is them overcorrecting based on what happened in the Tampa series where they got swept. I feel like they might have done the panic
Maybe.
move and tried,
especially since they were in a position too where like after all their trades at the deadline, they were left with like no picks for the next 4 years. They traded away their top prospects. Like they went about as all in as it gets, and it got them pretty much nowhere. Where like they beat Washington, but like they barely beat Washington, and
it was weird.
It was
like it should have
been a
lot,
and
they
they
got like
easier
embarrassed.
than.
But did I not say that
games?
though? Yeah, I think it was 6. I think they won in Washington. But like, did I not say that like, oh, they're gonna make that first round series look so hard because they haven't won a playoff series in 25 years? Like, of course, it's gonna look really difficult. And then they did.
I think it was like, yeah, everyone knew it was gonna be ugly, but like, I don't think anyone was expecting like the top like regular season team in the East to just like look so bad against like a bunch of like elderly beer league players. Like, made no sense.
Yeah. So, and what I'm realizing right in this moment as well is they also got rid of the coach that got them to a President's Trophy. They let go of Andrew
that's
Brunette
right.
In favor
they brought
of
in Paul Maurice. Who's like whatever.
So to recap, they lost. So looking at their subtractions,
I forgot about that.
It's Huberdeau, Weegar, Claude Giroux, Ben Sherratt, which is but Noel Achari, and then Mason Marchment. And what they got back was Tkachuk, Mark Stahl, Michael Delzato, Alex Lyon, and Colin White. They're not going to make the playoffs this year. That's my hot take. They're not even going to make the playoffs this time around.
You know what? I actually completely forgot that they switched to Paul Maurice, and I'm gonna change my my picks here pretty shortly because I completely forgot they ditched the coach too. That's crazy.
They fully overreacted to getting swept by Tampa because they were, instead of looking at, well, our power play just went ice cold at the absolute worst possible time. They went, oh, our whole system is
the
flawed,
whole thing is broken.
And we need to get grittier. And then they went for Matthew Tkachuk. And it's like, oh, I think that's going to come back to bite them, especially with what Ottawa did in the offseason.
Tkachuk's a very talented player, and any team would be happy to have him on their roster. But when you give up like an established playmaker like Jonathan Huberdeau, who scored?
Josh Anderson.
Hey, with how many seconds left?
Embarrassing.
17.9. 17.9 seconds left. Toronto
Dude, that
or Montreal's
rocks.
gonna win this
Oh
game.
my
Holy cow!
god.
I'm pretty sure that screws up every parlay I have, but I don't even give a shit. That's so embarrassing for the
Sheldon Keefe just like, oh, so we're starting this
That
bullshit
rules.
again.
Good
So
for them.
Oh
Yeah.
my
yeah.
gosh.
But yeah, Ottawa. So yeah, with Ottawa though, like they're a team. I think it's gonna
Wow.
go. I think Toronto, despite what they've shown so far here, and again, I don't really know why they've gone to Matt Murray to start the season when they have Ilya
What a
Samsonov.
shot.
Like what an interesting choice.
So speaking of overcorrections, it's probably the fear of like, okay, if we start Ilya Samsonov and he's really good, and we have the more expensive goalie on like backup duty, then we'll never be able to trade him, and we can't afford to trade another first round pick to get rid of him like we did with Petr Mrazek. So it's probably
Yeah.
the same thing. It's just overcorrection season, right?
Yeah, I think they'll still win that division though. Like I think Toronto, just purely on the talent that they have, will still win the division over like Tampa.
I think you're
who's
right, but
old.
I think Tampa will take the edge purely because of Vasilevsky.
That's
and the
true.
experience.
Vasilevsky's
That's the
incredible.
only reason I'm edging towards them. But like, if Toronto did it, I wouldn't be shocked either.
Yeah, Ottawa.
My
Yeah,
my
and then
bets for the season would really appreciate Tampa securing it because I have them, Colorado, Calgary, and Carolina as the division winners for the end of the year.
perfect segue into the Metro. Do you think Carolina's going to win that division
Actually,
again?
It might not be Carolina. I think I have the Rangers actually.
I was gonna say, cause I would
I
have,
think I
I
have the
would have
Rangers.
the Rangers, because
I
that
would have the
like,
Rangers as well.
Hold on,
because
hold on. Let's
first
check.
of all,
Yeah, I
they
do.
looked incredible against Tampa in that first game. This is kind like, I guess it's kind of cheating to use game one like results.
It's small
to kind
sample
of,
size, but like when you come out banging like that, you know,
they looked really good, and like particularly like, I mean, it's Shesterkin who's going to be the difference there, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
He looks so good. Like I mean, we talked about it last year how he deserved that Vezina fully. Like but yeah, like that's going to be, I think New York is going to win that division. I think that division got a lot worse this year than they were last year. Or at least in terms of like the top teams aren't nearly as strong as they were last time around. Except with the exceptions being the Rangers, and then also Columbus got weirdly better with Johnny Gaudreau. What a glow up for them.
With
If
good
any-
Branson.
I'm so sorry.
He
Eric
needed
Branson.
Branson on that team.
I mean,
I think it's kind of.
good for Eric and Branson that like.
Well, he got a 4x4. Good for him.
He has the best agent on the fucking planet.
It's also because he's so handsome.
He's so.
Yeah, you get lost in those eyes when you're negotiating a contract against him.
Exactly.
It always fucks me up that he's like 2 years younger than me, and he looks like 45 years old, but like a grizzled, handsome 45-year-old.
Yeah,
and he's looked that way since he was drafted. Like,
yeah,
it's insane. But anyway,
he's just always looked this good.
I think the East is still going to be like what it was last year, where you have a top four and a bottom four, like a clear cut. But I think instead of
Philadelphia,
so it'll be Philadelphia at the bottom, New York Islanders still like they're just in no man's land. New Jersey has enough young pieces that they might kind of do something, but like their goaltending is still
that's
huge
the big
question mark. Their
for
defense isn't great either.
I mean, they did get John Marino, which is a really good pickup for their defense. Like that's not bad.
He's good, but he's a good complementary piece to what you have, not a like he's the difference maker that will push your team over the edge. I don't think.
Yeah. Washington is definitely going to take a big step back. I don't think Washington's making the playoffs this year. Like I think based on purely on the fact that they traded both Ilya Samsonov and Vitek Vanacek and replaced them with Darcy Kemper, I'm like, I know he just won a cup, but again, trying to rely on Kemper for 82 nights a year. Yeah, I think, there's a very clear difference between the Avs defense and the Capitals defense.
I would actually argue that Washington's defense is actually the best thing going for it right now. Because I actually like Carlson. I like Martin.
But he doesn't play defense. He scores. Like, I don't think Carlson's not good in his own end. Yeah, he's a forward.
He's a forward.
This is true, but they've got enough experience where like they'll do what they do every year, and they just will themselves into a playoff spot, even if
Alex
they have no
Ovechkin
business
scores
being there.
Another 60 goals. Like
they'll just get there.
God.
Like they don't know, they don't have any other way of doing it, so to speak. So it's like just they'll probably be a wild card for me.
Yeah, I'm looking
them
at
or Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh will be the same thing.
I don't even know who their second line winger is here, according to Daily Faceoff. It's a guy by the name of Alexei Protas.
Oh yeah, he's just like some kid from the AHL who's like whatever.
There you go. Well, he's on the second line with Dylan Strome and Anthony Mantha.
I knew it. My favorite players.
Yeah,
It's banner time, guys.
it's
God.
banner time.
Oh,
It's banner
for the
time.
Avs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait,
well,
what?
Because
A banner?
they won the
What?
cup. They won the cup last
They
year.
won the cup.
Lachlan.
Lachlan?
Oh,
Colorado
the
Avalanche.
Avs. I thought you said the Oilers, and I was like, what? I'm like, yeah.
Oh God.
Does
No.
that? Oh my god.
Why
I mean,
are
they
Colorado
could.
playing
Anyways,
at 7? Isn't it like 9 o'clock in Colorado?
it is currently
It's 8 o'clock. It's
8
Mountain,
o'clock.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not that late.
No, it's just
Um,
weird that they're starting this late.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into. We're not doing trophy predictions.
We don't
are
have to do trophies. We can skip that. We can skip
Trophies
that
are
if you want.
boring anyway. It's like Rocket Richard. Oh, it's Ovechkin or
I mean,
look, or Matthews.
I just
Woo!
wanted. I guess we can. Yeah, let's just
go
mash it into hot takes, because I was just gonna be like, I only put those there so I could say that
fair.
Thatcher Demko is gonna win the Vezina Trophy this year.
I wouldn't argue against it. That's a good hot take.
It is
Jamie,
a good hot take because he still has to beat out Shesterkin and Vasilevsky to do it.
Yeah.
but I
That's
think it's
true.
possible.
That's a big gap. I mean, yeah, if they get in and he's like a 960 save percentage, then yeah. Very much so. Jamie, why don't you dish us with a hot take for the Canucks or any team? Doesn't matter.
I'll just say what I told you guys. I think Cole Caulfield is going to score more goals than Matthews.
Hey, he's off to a
He's
great
on to-
start. if
He's
that's
off to a
the case.
great start. He's got 2 over Matthews' 0.
He's on
So-
164
Just
goals
I
goal
mean,
pace,
Stop the count
Exactly.
now. Like,
Exactly. He's already won.
and he's
Boom.
basically Marty St. Louis Jr. So I mean, yeah,
Marty St. Louis
I
is
fuck with
his dad.
that's true. That's true.
Matthews
Literal
didn't even have a
family.
Matthews didn't even have a point in this game. Like
Literal family.
What a bust! I knew
Yeah.
it.
Oh my
but-
god, they're
so-
getting Jack Johnson in there.
Aw. So this is my
Jamie is
this is
freaking
my
out at
one
the
hot
banner.
take. Yeah, we'll wrap her up here real quick. My one hot take for the season. I've pitched this to friends, to coworkers, to fellow writers. Every single person pushes back on me and says I'm fucking nuts.
I don't know if I've heard this one. I'm trying to.
I think I tweeted about it earlier. I think Bo Horvat is going to hit 40 goals this year.
I would
you
love
know-
that.
That's not that
I
crazy.
would love
is it?
that.
You'd think
How
that.
about- what's his season high? What's his record?
Well, he hit a season high last year with 33 or 32.
Okay,
My
yeah. he could
my
do
whole
that.
logic here is that he does not have a contract, and as we talked, because obviously this is like hindsight. Our show does not continue off from here. In hindsight, we always talk about Jeff Skinner and all these other players that have incredible glow ups in their contract year before they're due an extension. Bo Horvat just got outshined by JT Miller for an extension. He has a better track record of goal scoring. He's always been like a 20-plus goal scorer.
He's
there's a
bona
good
fide playoff
shot.
performer. Yeah.
If you watch that preseason and you saw how Andrei Kuzmenko worked the backboard and how he was setting up Bo Horvat in the Bo Horvat spot, there is no doubt in my mind, without a contract, that Bo Horvat is going to hit 40 goals this year. And if he hits 40 and the team is in a playoff spot, the team isn't going to be in deep shit when they need to extend him, because a 40-plus goal scoring center, that is going to be a tough sell. You think they were arguing that 7 million plus for Sean Couturier was a bad comparison? Just wait for when he's throwing out Jeff Skinner comparisons. It's going to be bad. Wait for it. Count on it right now.
I will once again debate you slightly on the fact of, like, I do understand that, like, players get, like, do decently better in their contract years, but also, again, like, I question they don't just find like a magic random gear that makes them way better at hockey all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, they do.
I mean, they kind of do, but like it's always there. It's always there.
You know how I use this as a comparable? Alex Biega in the NHL and the AHL was a tweener and would hit like 5 points over like 82 games, like barely produced, didn't do anything. In his final year with the Canucks, in 60 or 40 games, whatever it was, he had like quadrupled his offensive output with something like 15 or 20 points in 45 games. He never came close afterwards or before. It was a complete glow up. These players know when they're about to get paid, and they will go for the gold every single time to try and get themselves paid. That's why injuries are such a huge risk when these guys are in their final year, and that's why they'll play through shit. They'll do anything they can to make sure they secure the bag. And Bo Horvat, he's got 2 kids now. He's got a dog. He's, flying from Ontario to Vancouver to play in this crappy market. That guy needs monies, and he is going to go for the bag. And 40 goals.
Good for
I
him.
have
Secure
no
that.
doubts in my mind that he's going to hit it. Anyways, folks,
we have about, so if anyone like for last thoughts and stuff like that, we have about, I think the Oilers are probably going to do their age-long introduction for every single player on the team. So we've got we got
45 to an hour.
We got 45 to an hour. No, we have like 10 minutes. We have like 10 minutes for any like final thoughts that anyone wants to drop in before we go. In terms of just the show and everything and whatnot.
I will just say I was going to try and not be pleasant because that's just not my thing on this podcast. This podcast for me is an excuse to try and see how long of a run-on sentence I can get out of myself when trying to say anything. The longer it goes, the better, which, is really funny.
4 score.
Yeah, 4 score and Webster's Dictionary defines.
Yeah, oh God, if you did like a Webster's Dictionary defines thing, I would
Webster's
be like,
Dictionary defines podcasting as
yeah, I would mute you immediately.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I just wanted to quickly say it's been an absolute pleasure working with the two of you for the podcast. Jamie, even if it was brief but short, it was great working with you. You are someone that's always very fun to bounce ideas off of and to I don't want to say belittle, but kind of just like mock subtly on the show whenever one of your favorite players does something embarrassing. Something I take great joy in.
I'm used to it.
It was getting a little stale doing it just to Lachlan over whatever goalie he likes or whatever. So
and especially because the goalies kept showing up.
Yeah, that was a bit frustrating for me. So to have a secondary option has been a huge relief to my mental state. Obviously,
I could help.
I've enjoyed doing the show. I'm sad that we are going to be going on hiatus, but because we're all furthering our media careers through Canucks Army, and that's the reason it's shutting down. Like it is what it is, and I think it's just great because it means we get to work with each other on a different outlet, a different medium. It looks like Canucks Army is going to be dabbling into the video content pretty heavily this season, so that means we get to work a lot more with Jamie and her fine ass talents. Lachlan, obviously your writing is great, and the amount of content you're churning out is really impressive. I wish I could write as fast as you, even though you're doing it with one fucking finger on each hand, which makes no sense to me. I explained this to Roxanne a while ago, and she was like, is he okay? Like, she could not believe it when I explained it to her, like that you were a one finger person.
No, Roxy, I'm not okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm not okay. I was never properly trained.
Like that.
Yeah, well, that's my whole role here is to embarrass myself, embarrass the people, the guests, anyone I can possibly. And it's been really fun. Obviously, it would have been nice to have spent the last few years covering and talking about a team that wasn't a complete tire fire. And there is some juicy, hilarious irony that we're going on hiatus like the second the team might actually be good finally.
Yeah.
But as I was saying that, I was going to put that in a tweet, but I wanted to save it for the show. As I was typing it out and trying to formulate the words, I was like, that's probably something I've said every season preview episode we've done over the last 2 seasons, where I've said, I always come into this negative, but this year might be the year where they're finally good again. And then nothing happens.
Yeah.
So maybe that won't be this year, but I just wanted to get that out there to add the classic Cody Sievertson jinx to close out what's been a very fun run of the CreaseCast. So thank you to you both. Thank you to our listeners and our Patreon subscribers as well. Even though 2 of them are my friends, and I just told them in at a brewery on the weekend. Like, oh, by the way, don't resubscribe.
I already just to pull back the curtain, I did pause Patreon subscriptions at the beginning of the month, so no one got charged. Nobody got charged for October, and I'm
I have a very funny story about that too. So I told them we were at like a brewery or whatever, and I was just like, oh, by the way, guys, like I'm jacking up my work with Canucks Army, so I'm not gonna be doing the CreaseCast anymore. My one buddy was like really upset. He's like, are you fucking kidding? How am I supposed to support you? And I was like, aw. And then we were sitting down at our brewery table, and he pulls out his phone, and he's like, nothing personal, kid, as he hits unsubscribe on his Patreon app. Fuck, it was fucking sending me. It was so funny.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh my God.
Shout out to all our listeners and subscribers, or like if you bought merch or you've done anything to support the show, even if it's just like tweeting or retweeting our stuff. Really appreciate it. It's been like an absolute blast, and I send my thanks to you for your support.
Yeah. Jamie, anything you want to say?
It was a pleasure to do this podcast with the two of you. Getting bullied by a man 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
Very entertaining stuff here.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Without you guys, I couldn't have gotten the Canucks Army job.
You would have got it anyway. Are you kidding me? Have you seen your fan cams? Like, fuck off. You would have gotten it anyway. Yeah, easily.
You saw like how pumped up the entire work chat was about your videos.
Shit
like, holy God.
Slaps, bro.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Thanks,
yes,
guys.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. And yeah, it was great.
Awesome. Lachlan, your final words, sir.
Wow. I mean, God, the show's come a long way since I started it. Like, I started it by myself. Like, I was living in an this really bad apartment with like terrible ventilation, and there was like a point where I was doing these episodes literally in like 20-minute increments by myself, because my house was so warm during the pandemic that my computer would overheat and die if I tried to record anything for longer than 20 minutes. So there were a lot of days where I would be up until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. just trying to get a video to render, to upload it.
Editing the show in 20-minute segments.
Quite literally doing that. Yeah. And it was one of those things where I did it like because it was a labor of love, and I like doing the show, and it's something I'm very proud of. And like to see it turn into this, where not only do I get to work with like two incredibly talented people, like people who I'm fortunate enough to call friends. Like this is like everything that I wanted the show to be and more. So God, I'm gonna try not to get too emotional here, but like this is something that like I'm super duper proud of, and like something that again I really do want to come back to it at some point down the line, because it matters a lot. It matters a lot to me, and I know it matters a lot to you guys as well. Take it or leave it. Yeah, it's okay.
I actually don't really care about hockey at all.
Yeah,
it's not like I made it my whole life, you know.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's not like it's our entire careers
golf
now. Like, yeah,
maybe I'll go to baseball.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe go to baseball.
Mariners.
There you
go. Go Mariners.
Yeah, there we go. But like, yeah, just like all the fun moments, like some of the wild stuff we've done on this show, like just like there was like I'll never forget Cody doing this is your Botchford project for me when I got the Botchford project. That was so special.
You did the fucking hot sauce too.
I did the
you
hot
put your
sauce.
Body on the line for this pod.
The hot sauce. I was hoping we'd figure out something to bet the hot sauce again on this episode, but we didn't. I couldn't think of anything because we're both. I'll
put it this way. So obviously, before we sign off, we were going to do. We did our predictions or whatever. I will say now, when we do our probably like a year-end recap, when the Canucks inevitably lose and don't make playoffs, I will bet. I will do that stupid, shitty, gross hot sauce if Bo Horvat doesn't hit 40 goals. That's how convinced.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
I'll be there this time.
Well, we're gonna get Popeyes. We're gonna make a day of it. Hell yeah. Because if you're wrong, because if you're right, then I eat hot sauce again, which is.
No, you don't have to do it.
No. It's got to make for good content. We can't just be like, "Oh, you were right." Like that was it. Like someone's got to eat the hot sauce. Like
I just don't know if it's good for your
laughing.
system. Yeah.
Oh, hey, listen, I thought it was great content, and sometimes I'll see that video again, I'll just be like, this is so funny. Like, just watching me die, like, is
Jamie
so funny.
can hold my hair back when I'm puking it all out. But
I think you'll handle it. I think you'll handle it fine if you get there. But
I'm good
hopefully
with
you
spice.
don't. Hopefully Bo Horvat gets 40 goals. But
anyways, folks,
yeah, thank you guys.
thank you
Thanks,
again.
everybody.
We probably should like ask our
Oh.
Patreon subscribers if we can use their names and like thank you to so and so. You know?
Yeah,
How,
we
like,
should. We should look. I will definitely look into that if we can do it. But
Don't worry
because
about it.
I
I
definitely
actually
have the list.
No, because you know what? It'll be a small list, and people are gonna try and figure out which ones are my friends, and I don't know if I want that actually.
I mean, they're all our friends. Like,
Or
every single one
yeah.
of them is someone we know.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure personally. So it's like it's not a big deal.
That's true.
But I forgot there is one last thing I need to say, which
Oh.
is that okay, when it comes to the show and the history, like, and like whether or not we'll ever come back to it, I will say what I said when I first started the show. There was one thing I said, I believe on one of the earliest episodes of the show, which is that this show will never end until Roberto Luongo comes on as a guest. That's the rule. that is the straight up rule of number one of this show, is that until Luongo comes on as a guest and does a guest spot with us, we can never end the show fully. So it's like our 6 seasons and a movie. It's 4 seasons and a Luongo appearance. It's there you go.
Well, we're almost there. We'll try and get him on. Maybe he'll have a cameo like Bruce Boudreau does one day. But until a mid-season recap, a terrible trade for the Canucks, or a great trade for the Canucks, we will catch you guys next time. I am Cody Sievertson. You can find my work at Canucks Army. That's Lachlan Irvin. You can find his work at Canucks Army. And that's Jamie. And you can find her work at Canucks Army. Well, Canucks Army Twitter. Yeah, follow the Twitter account.
Maybe she'll write an article. Maybe we'll get her to write 10 things she loves about Nils Amon.
But instead of writing it, it'll be different videos.
Yeah,
like, it'll be
it'll just be like,
videos.
look at this guy. Like,
isn't he neat?
I just think he's neat.
It's Nils to the tune of it's corn.
Exactly. Otherwise, folks, don't subscribe to our Patreon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel anyway, and ding the bell in case that big episode drops where we come back.
Honestly, you can still follow the Patreon as well, because if we ever update on like if we're gonna come back and do something, we'll probably let the Patreon people know first. So like you can still follow it at the very least. But again, there's no way to pay for the Patreon right now anyway.
That's true. And then send me money to my home address at no, I'm just kidding.
Just doxes yourself. You're like, oh, so close.
You have to mail it to me. E-transfer does not exist.
E-transfer doesn't work. I am banned from the bank. Anyways, folks, this has been a blast. We will enjoy another season of the Canucks. Hopefully it's less miserable than the last 2 have been. This has been me for the CreaseCast, and we'll catch you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Lovely time.
Oh, actually, you know what I did do? You know what I forgot? I forgot I did this. This won't go into. Maybe this will go into the show. I don't know. Here it is.
Oh my god.
Yeah.